Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Laurie McKnight, and I'm the minister that's temporarily serving here at Centertown United Church. And I would like to welcome you all to the mayoral candidates' eco debate being held here at Centertown United Church in the neighborhood of Centertown in Ottawa. You are welcome whether you have arrived here in person, bravely, or are participating through live stream. Welcome to our moderator, Adrian Harewood, and to all of the mayoral candidates. And I would like to express my gratitude for your willingness to serve our community, doing your civic duty. So thank you. We begin by acknowledging that we are located on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and the Anishinaabe people who have dwelt here for centuries, claiming the junction of the Ottawa, Gatineau, and Rideau rivers as sacred waters, a place where healing, trade, and nation building can occur. The United Church of Canada and the City of Ottawa are learning how to be supportive as the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples seek justice, truth, and reconciliation in their journey to reclaim their languages and culture, walking with them in humility and friendship as they continue to teach us about the stewardship of the land and Mother Earth. So I hope that you will have a productive, informative, and respectful debate tonight, keeping creation at the very heart of our discussion and exploration. Have a great meeting.
Good evening. Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs. My name is Adrian Harewood. I'm a professor in the School of Journalism, professor in the School of Journalism and Communication at Carleton University. And tonight I am delighted, I'm honored to be serving as the moderator for this debate here at Centertown United Church. Tonight, we are very fortunate to present to you an in-depth mayoral candidate debate of environmental and climate justice issues. It is the last in a series of 4 eco-debates that began in August 16th to be exact. Previous eco-debates, where all 14 mayoral candidates were invited, were held in Barrhaven, in Canada, and also Orleans. And the recordings of these debates are available to you from the organizers. Now, the selection of the 5 candidates present tonight is based on a survey sent to all signed-in attendees at the previous events, asking them who they most would like to hear more from and ranking their choices. So right now, we're going to proceed with our debate. And I would just ask those of you who are in the audience just to respect the fact that we are trying to have a very civil discussion this evening. And so just allow certainly all the candidates, and I would ask also if you just allow me, the moderator, also to proceed this evening. Thank you very much for your cooperation. So the way things are going to move this evening is we are going to start with introductions from our candidates. There will then be an opening statement from each of our candidates of 2 minutes. I will then ask about 5 questions. We will then have a bit of a break at around 8:10 for a couple of minutes, and then we will return to another set of questions, and those questions are coming from organizations in our city. So to get things started, I would just like to ask our first candidate, Brandon Bay, to introduce himself. And I would ask all of our candidates in their introduction, if you can try to answer the question, who are you and what qualifies you to be our mayor. So we're going to start with Brandon Bay. Brandon.
Thank you, Adrian. Happy to kick us off tonight. My name is Brandon Bay. I'm a software developer who manages the team at a senior-focused social enterprise and a passionate community volunteer. I have helped charities, festivals, community associations, and nonprofit boards, and now I'm running for mayor. The mayor's role, to me, is primarily one of leadership and vision. As the head of council, the mayor should set the direction and tone for Ottawa's future. They should be the strongest advocate for seeing that vision through, inspiring staff and council to work toward it, and communicating it to the world. These are skills that I have spent years honing. I have led teams in professional, governance, and volunteer capacities since childhood through shared passion and mutual respect. My career in tech has given me an appreciation for using data to back up decisions. It has helped me learn to communicate complex ideas simply, and I would work hard as mayor to improve transparency at City Hall and justify my votes and decisions using facts and data. My green track record in the original question can't be viewed so much through a political lens. I haven't had a chance to vote in favor of sustainable initiatives, but I live a life that I hope will assure you that I would. In childhood, I began collecting and recycling people's litter left along the rural streets, and in the many years since, I have remained a naturalist, connected to the environment and spending a lot of time in it. I regularly take my canoe out on both Rideaus, the canal and the river, and I take transit as often as possible and love doing it. I'm an occasional cyclist and I remain a dedicated recycler. I spoke at past eco debates about how people will always go to whatever lengths it takes to do the convenient thing, but that's often true of me, but I will also go to about any length to avoid putting an aluminum can in the wrong bin. At the same time, I won't hide that there's skills I need to improve. I attended a workshop on municipal finance this campaign and have read countless laws, bylaws, and staff reports since I first decided to run in November. Pour améliorer mon français, j'ai embauché un tuteur et je me suis inscrite à des cours en ligne. I'm in this race to make Ottawa the best it can be as often as it can be.
Okay. Thanks so much, Brandon. Bob Chiarelli.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us here this evening. Bienvenue à tous. You may know me already, and you may know my track record. I know how to get results, and that is what I want to do again. I can guarantee that I have not been nor will be the most exciting mayor you'll have, but I successfully dealt with the ice storm. I successfully dealt with the city amalgamation. I successfully dealt with the original train project without problems or crises. I successfully froze property taxes as regional chair and mayor for 6 successive years. I successfully held 4 senior cabinet portfolios in our provincial government. I was the first mayor in Canada to implement no smoking in public places. And I was fortunate to have excellent councillors and managers. You can count on me. For example, on my initiative, the city created a joint venture to collect methane gas at Trail Road and convert it into electricity. Selling the product to the grid, worth millions of dollars to the city, extending the life of the landfill, generating revenue for taxpayers, and reducing greenhouse gas. Those are the kind of results I expect to achieve again. I was the Ontario Minister of Energy who shut down the giant Nanticoke coal-fired energy plant, the equivalent of removing 7 million cars from the road. Environment and climate change are too important to be left to pious platitudes and wishful thinking. This election is about knowing how to deliver actual results. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob Chiarelli. Catherine McKenney.
Thank you, and hello everyone. My name is Catherine McKenney. I'm running to be your mayor. Bonjour à toi, mon nom est Catherine McKenney, et je me présente à la mairie. Let me tell you a bit about myself and my years of experience with the city and with our communities. I've lived in Canada and worked for the council there, as well as here in Somerset Ward. And prior to being elected, I was a senior advisor to the deputy city manager, responsible for all operations at the city. I am a 2-term city councillor, bringing the leadership that I believe we need in our city. And this experience has provided me with the insight needed into both city finances and city operations to be mayor. I've worked major files like housing and homelessness, transit, and the LRT. As I noted before I was elected, I worked for the city. I used to help draft the budget. I saw how the city prepares the budget months before the public consultations, so it's virtually finalized before you're even asked for your input. Back then, I didn't think it was right, and I still don't. It's why I decided to run for council then, and it's why I've decided to run for mayor now. And over the last 8 years, I've fought for the LRT inquiry. I've fought to prevent our city from subsidizing corporations like a Porsche dealership. I fought to keep trees from being cut down in our neighborhoods. I walked the streets of Ottawa during the convoy with you. We built community together, and we kept each other safe. And now I'm running for mayor because our city has so much potential that's not being realized. And we can build the healthiest, the greenest, and the best connected city. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine McKenney. Mark Sutcliffe.
Merci, Adrian. Merci à les autres candidats et merci à vous pour être ici au centre-ville pour ce débat. I want to acknowledge that we are on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people, whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. I was very lucky that I was born in Ottawa. My parents were immigrants to Canada. They instilled in me a sense of responsibility to contribute to my community. And that's why I've spent thousands of hours as a volunteer working on issues like housing and homelessness, on children at risk, and mental health and substance use disorder. I was the chair of the board of United Way Ottawa, the Great Canadian Theatre Company, the Ottawa Board of Trade, and more. I care very deeply about the future of our city and about what's ahead for our children and grandchildren. Je suis fier d'être un candidat bilingue qui peut parler avec résidents francophones et anglophones dans leur langue maternelle. I've been listening to the people of Ottawa for more than 30 years, and since I announced I was running for mayor, I've heard two things: excitement about how Ottawa has so much potential, and anxiety about the future. I share those feelings. I've heard many of you talk about how we have an opportunity to build an amazing city. But I've also heard lots of concerns about the rising cost of living, whether your kids will be able to afford a home in Ottawa, the issues that we've had with public transit, the future of downtown, and of course the impact of climate change. I believe that it's time for a change at City Hall. I will bring change that puts people first, change that respects and serves everyone in Ottawa, no matter where you live. I have a plan to get everyone working together to build a better city for everyone. Merci.
Mark Sutcliffe, thanks so much. And now, Nour Kadri.
Mesdames et messieurs, bonsoir. Je m'appelle Nour Kadri et je suis un professeur à l'Université d'Ottawa dans le domaine de l'intelligence artificielle. And I teach also at the School of Management in the Executive MBA program in Strategic Management and Corporate Governance and Ethics. I'd like to acknowledge that we are also on unceded and unsurrendered territories of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe nations. They are the caretakers of the land, and we should learn from their wisdom and their knowledge, especially when it comes to the environment. I want to thank Adrian for moderating this. He said that he's liberated when he became a professor. I feel the joy of being liberated all my life, being a professor for 20 plus years now. I would like to thank CAFES for organizing these debates. This is the fourth debate I participate in, and I want to thank you all, the people who are attending these debates. We had 1,400 plus people who have joined us today, and this is a remarkable testament to the importance of the environment and how people are trying to see that this is an important issue to lead on. Let me share with you my personal story that has brought me to this point as your candidate for mayor of Ottawa. I was born in Lebanon in 1974. My father was a policeman, and my mother was a teacher. My father passed away when I was 8 years old. I went to work before I turned 9. And I worked in agriculture and farming. I worked in a jewelry store. I worked in travel and tourism. I worked as a security guard. I worked in construction. You name it, I've done it. And I kept taking care of my mother and my 3 brothers. And at the age of 24, on December 11th, at midnight, I landed in Ottawa. Someone with a master's degree in engineering, and I came here to be with you.
Okay, we're gonna have to wrap up. Really, we're at the end of your time, but you will have a chance to speak again with you.
These are experiences that have prepared me for a life of service that have brought me to this moment running for your mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nour Kadri. And Nour, you're actually going to have a chance to speak again right now because we've completed the introduction part of this evening, and now we're going to ask each of our candidates to deliver an opening statement. And Nour, you're going to start, so please go ahead.
Thank you. That's good. I could have merged that with my opening statement. Okay. So I've worked in telecom, in research, in government, and academia. And I established myself and sponsored my 3 brothers and my mother to come to Canada. When I arrived here on Thursday night, on Sunday morning, I called my friend Gabby, and we went to volunteer at a senior's home. We were collecting bingo cards, and that was in support of 3 charities. We made this a commitment every Sunday, and since then I've been volunteering, and I volunteered for many charities, for cancer research, for the Heart Institute, and for many other organizations. Those are the experiences that I bring. I have learned to build coalitions, to problem solve, and to lead. On the environment, climate change is with us, and we cannot ignore its existence or impeding impact. We need to prepare for a future of climate challenges and make Ottawa a more resilient and sustainable community. Our future generations need to be assured for a future that affords them a clean and healthy environment. At the same time, we cannot ask the present generation to bear the burden and sacrifices so that the future generations are protected. Intergenerational equity presupposes intragenerational equity, and environmental justice implies justice now and in the future. To meet these great generational and existential challenges, Ottawa will need strong leadership to marshal our collective energies and resources. I bring extensive knowledge and experience from my years of work in the public, private, and academic sectors to the profound challenge before us. As a coalition builder and a problem solver, I'm the leader for this historic task. As Canada's capital city, Ottawa, in collaboration with its provincial and federal partners, as well as with other public and private stakeholders, can and should play a leadership role in environmental stewardship. The time is now for progressive, pragmatic, and principled leadership on the environment, and please visit my website at kadri.ca for more detailed information on my ecological plan that we unveiled today.
Nour Kadri, thanks so much. Mark Sutcliffe.
Au cours des 25 prochaines années, la population d'Ottawa va grandir par un demi-million. Ottawa a le potentiel de devenir une ville beaucoup plus vibrante et excitante. Comme beaucoup d'entre vous, j'ai hâte à ce potentiel. Over the next 25 years, Ottawa's population will grow by 500,000 people. It's exciting, but with that growth comes significant challenges. We must manage our growth carefully. We must build enough new homes to accommodate that growth. We must improve all forms of transportation so people can get around more easily. We must make Ottawa greener and cleaner. So here's my commitment to you. I will treat you with respect. J'ai l'expérience nécessaire pour vous représenter, peu importe où vous vivez dans notre ville. I'll invest in emergency and social services, including paramedics. I won't defund the police. I'll bring a balanced approach to fix public transit and repair roads and paths so everyone can get around safely. I'll keep taxes low, cut recreation fees for kids, and work hard to make housing more affordable. I will work to build our economy at a crucial time for our city when the future of work is changing dramatically, and some of our largest employers, like the federal government and the tourism industry, are undergoing significant changes. J'ai été le premier candidat à présenter ma plateforme sur l'environnement. Je l'ai fait il y a plusieurs mois. My environmental platform contains a number of significant practical steps we can take to reduce emissions and energy consumption at the City of Ottawa and improve our quality of life. J'ai un plan compréhensif et équilibré. If we make the right decisions in the next few years, I know Ottawa can realize its full potential, and I mean all of Ottawa, whether you live in the rural parts of the city, the suburbs, or downtown. Let's work together to make Ottawa a safe, reliable, and affordable place for our children and grandchildren.
Thank you, Mark Sutcliffe. Catherine McKenney.
Thank you. I am running for mayor to make Ottawa the healthiest, greenest, and best connected city in Canada. Because everywhere I go, people tell me they're ready for change. Because they recognize the potential in our city. And together we will create vibrant neighborhoods that make us proud of where we live. We will invest in affordable housing and build a healthier, greener, and better connected city. We will run transit that takes you where you need to go on time. We will make our roads and sidewalks safe for everyone. We will build fun public spaces and parks in your neighborhood. And your kids, 17 and under, will ride transit for free, because this makes life more affordable for families. And when I am mayor, no community will be left behind. I am running to build a world-class city for affordable housing, for reliable and affordable transit, for safe cycling, for making Ottawa a world leader in climate action, and to give you a say in how decisions are made. Because I know that when the city budget is drafted, they write it in July and don't consult you until October. I am running to change that, to bring you into decision-making at City Hall, and to build a City Hall we can all trust. Our city has so much potential. Working together will make Ottawa the healthiest, the greenest, and the best connected city. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine McKenney. Please hold your applause. Thank you very much. Bob Chiarelli.
Thank you. As anyone who has lived in Ottawa over the last several decades knows, with a high degree of certainty, the rising temperature of our planet, resulting in ever more frequent destructive and devastating storms, is an existential threat to us all. As a result, it is essential that we do our part to help achieve the national objective of zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. While the federal and provincial governments have the lead and primary responsibility for action, having most of the available funds and tools, we in the City of Ottawa must do our part, achieving maximum outcomes within our fiscal capability and limited tools. We need practical and affordable initiatives, and this evening I will be presenting a number of practical and affordable initiatives.
Bob Chiarelli, thank you. Brendan Bay.
I'd like to take a moment to thank the People's Efficient Plan Group for organizing, Adrian Harewood for moderating, and the Centertown United Church for hosting us, along with the many of you that came out to attend and even more online. But I'd also like to take a moment to thank the candidates who were not invited to join us tonight. Your passion and ideas are so valuable in this discourse, and your supporters have a voice thanks to you. I encourage everyone to watch their videos online when you have a chance. I do appreciate, though, how the smaller field lets me speak at a reasonable pace for once. I have been hearing from residents across the city about the unbearable cost of housing, the embarrassing and painful state of transit, and their fears about the future of employment and climate change. All of these things are related, and the solution to them is to invest in our communities. That starts with housing. Ottawa is expected to grow by 500,000 people, as Mr. Sutcliffe mentioned, which translates to about 200,000 new homes we need to build in that time. This growth is going to have an impact on our climate, the land that we lose to build them, the way these people move around, and the environments that we build for them. Council then should focus its energy on ensuring we build sustainable, complete communities. When we have these communities, staying close to home becomes viable and appealing, every part of the city becomes a destination, and small businesses thrive with a local pool of customers. Communities grow together, and neighbors support one another, making our homes friendlier, safer, and more inclusive. Remote workers can thrive in their own neighborhoods, and employees in the world's top knowledge economy jobs will want to live and work here. Transit can be streamlined between these hubs, opening up new options for residents without cars. Emissions go down as people drive less, and roads become less congested as people stay home. Complete communities progress our other goals too. The swaths of service parking lots in our suburban communities can become farmers markets, parks, new shops, and new homes. Complete communities, and with them, climate justice, must be at the heart of everything we do in the coming years. They benefit everyone, and they will turn Ottawa into an affordable, sustainable, world-renowned capital city.
Thank you, Brandon Bay. We're now going to move to our first question, and the first question is going to go to Brandon Bay. He will have about 1.5 minutes to respond, and then the other candidates will respond and engage in a debate. In this section, each question should last approximately 8 minutes. So the question is this: although the City of Ottawa has a climate change master plan, the plan remains off budget and off track. How do you propose getting back on track in terms of dedicated senior management, budget commitment, and broader community engagement? Brandon Bay.
Corporate emissions, which is to say the city services and business, are about 5 years ahead of schedule right now, but the bars were set softly early on for them. They were under their 2025 targets the year before the plan was even approved, thanks to some great work from the Waste Department. You're right, though, that community emissions are lagging behind a little. And the plan remains in its infancy, so the city and I as well are hopeful that these programs are just taking some time to spin up. By city staff estimates, electrifying transportation and modernizing or replacing older buildings will account for 75% of all the emissions we need to reduce. These actions are and must remain the focus. The Canada Green Building Strategy is a forthcoming federal program that will help accelerate the latter significantly. The Federal Minister of Natural Resources has said that when the program launches next year, it will unleash a boom in green building construction and jobs. And it's just one of so many external sources of funding available right now. Ottawa needs to make sure that as the seat of the federal government, we are at the forefront of this benefit. To their credit, the city staff who lead the implementation of the Climate Change Master Plan are working hard to see it through. My priority would be to appoint a climate director in the other departments to make them more green with a specific focus on implementation details. The big picture vision and leadership is the job of the mayor and council, and adding more top-level bureaucrats will just give us too many cooks in the kitchen. Complete communities are a large part of the solution as well and should be the focus of our engagement. We won't meet our targets without significantly reducing vehicle emissions, and that will require building great destinations across the city, offering everything residents need to thrive. People in these communities know what they're missing and what they have that's worth holding on to. We have to listen to them.
Thank you, Brandon. Bob Chiarelli, your response?
Thank you. You asked, how do we get the master plan back on track? With respect, the plan never was on track. Politicians and bureaucrats spent 4 years and millions of dollars to draft an unviable plan calling for an expenditure of $32 billion, with a B, $32 billion, including $7.5 billion from the city over 5 years for 20 priority projects, meaning nothing will get done. And the inaction over 2 years is evidence of that. You don't solve global warming with wishful thinking. What the city has done over the past 16 years has not worked. So it's time for a new and fresh approach. I would move responsibility for developing a new realistic plan to Hydro Ottawa, using their experience and expertise to come up with sound environmental solutions that are fiscally responsible. Not the politicians, not the bureaucrats. Solving climate change by adding one senior bureaucrat is totally misplaced and shows an unwillingness to deal with the real issues in a real way. Thank you.
Catherine McKenney, you were on council for the last four years. Bob Chiarelli says that the plan was never on track, this climate master plan. Do you agree with that?
I do. The city wrote a plan, it's a good plan, didn't fund it. Actually, the city's portion of the plan is about 5%. The investments that the city would make will catalyze investments across the community. So let's get that, we need to get that straight. But what we need today is action. So we need action, and what I'll do as mayor is I will preserve and grow the green space that we need. We will green buildings to reduce emissions, save you on energy costs. We'll improve waste diversion so nobody has to throw out their organics or their plastics. We'll build healthy, walkable communities, affordable transit, and we'll make Ottawa into a world-class city for cycling so you can choose to bike safely no matter where you live in this city. And we will end urban sprawl that costs you tens of millions of dollars every year. It has got to end now. Thank you.
Mark Sutcliffe, is there anything that you disagree with? Catherine McKenney, do you concur with what you just said there?
So I think leadership on climate change starts at the top. Je pense que le leadership sur le changement climatique commence au bureau du maire. And we need the mayor and council to make this a priority and for the city of Ottawa to lead by example. And that's why I released my environment plan more than a month ago. I was the first candidate to do so. And it's a thorough and comprehensive plan that includes establishing a mayor's roundtable on the environment with not-for-profit organizations, including cafes, including Ecology Ottawa, including the Ottawa Riverkeeper, and more. Je vais établir une table ronde sur l'environnement avec des organismes à but non lucratif comme Ecology Ottawa, Ottawa Riverkeeper, et cafés. I will also provide regular public reporting on carbon emissions in line with the city's 2040 climate goals, and I will make significant investments through Hydro Ottawa to retrofit a number of city buildings that are consuming way too much energy. They are adding to emissions, and they are costing us a lot in energy consumption. We will also build charging stations. Did you know there are only something like 26 electric vehicle charging stations in Ottawa right now? I intend to build 200 more. And we will reduce, by doing that, reduce emissions and energy costs. And I intend to plant 1 million trees over the next 4 years. That's an ambitious goal, but I think we can get it done. Thank you.
I did want to ask you, though, Mark Sutcliffe, because you didn't really answer the question. How does your plan differ from Catherine McKenney's plan?
So I think there's one big difference, which is I think I'm going to invest in a balanced approach. C'est un plan équilibré. My intention is to do a series of things, not invest $250 million in bike lanes. That's one difference between our two plans. And that's an expensive plan that will mean the city will have to borrow a lot of money and pay a lot of interest over the next few years.
Nour Kadri.
I don't think there are balanced approaches when it comes to the environment. The environment is our collective responsibility and stewardship. All of us must bear responsibility for preserving a clean and sustainable environment. An engagement of all is a precondition to a successful environmental plan. And devoting sufficient resources to its success is key. But devoting sufficient resources must be premised on the use of scarce resources efficiently and economically. We cannot postpone action. We cannot underfund necessary programs, but we cannot and should not waste valuable resources. Our program must be conceived carefully and judicially in time and must be effective and efficient. And if you look at the plan that we have at the City of Ottawa and the master plan, this is going to cost $57.4 billion. This is about $61,000 out of every pocket of the people in Ottawa. This is too ambitious, but we shouldn't be looking at it and putting the burden on the citizens of Ottawa. Our plan is to build a green economy.
It sounds as if you're calling for balance.
No, we want to build a green economy, and it's not a balance. We need to utilize our funds in a different way, and we need to look at funding from a different perspective. We're going to have a best practices approach for funding. There are hundreds of billions of dollars that are available from infrastructure banks, from venture capitals, from green municipal funds, and only 15% of that makes it to the cities. Why? Because the city was an adapter, not a shaper. We are going to change that. We are going to be a partner and bring those monies to be invested in Ottawa and create green-collar jobs and deliver on a master plan that is going to be for the people and of the people.
Bob Chiarelli, should cost matter when it comes to fighting climate change? Should cost matter, the cost of some of these plans? Does it matter?
We have a $6.2 billion budget in the city. We have debt of $350 billion. We pay $250 million a year in interest. We've got 17,000 employees. And in this election campaign up until now, there have been some very interesting initiatives have been proposed. And I can't remember seeing any single one of them calculating the costs to do what they wanted to do. Our city is in very serious financial trouble, and we need to have serious financial management. We cannot go out and make the type of commitments or promises that you're making without showing how it had been costed out. So that's one very, very significant point.
Catherine McKenney, has your plan been costed out?
My plan is costed out. I will be putting out my entire financial plan next week. I'm looking forward to it. And it will show exactly how we will fund my entire platform. And I'll just say this about debt. You know what? We found $333 million in debt for Lansdowne 2.0. Nobody asked a question. We found another $131 million when the main library went over budget. Nobody asked that question. So I'm saying to you, we're going to build an equitable approach to how we move around this city, and we are going to do that in a way that is measured and that makes sure that we have got the infrastructure in place to provide ourselves with an equitable approach to how we move around the city. Kids deserve to go to school safely. We deserve good, affordable transit. We deserve wide sidewalks. We deserve to be able to get around our city in an equitable way.
Mark Sutcliffe, what makes your plan cost-effective?
So I'll have a fully costed plan as well. I'll have a full financial plan coming out next week.
So you don't know yet?
Bit of a coincidence. So it's being worked on now, and all of the plans that I've been talking about are achievable under that financial plan. I think it's important to point out that taxes are important in this equation. Taxes are important to the people of Ottawa. And we've heard one candidate say that he will freeze taxes in the first year, which I think is a political gimmick. I don't think it's something that can work. It will lead to bigger tax increases later. And we've heard Catherine McKenney saying that they will keep tax increases to 3%. Which I don't think is credible. I don't think the people of Ottawa believe that's possible given all the things that Catherine is talking about spending money on. And as one example, the $250 million worth of bike lanes is going to cost something like $15 or $20 million a year in interest and principal. And that represents a 1% tax increase just for that one initiative, not including the additional spending on OC Transpo and the reduction in Transpo revenue because of the free fares for people 17 and under. So I think people deserve an honest answer about where their taxes are going to be, and I intend to deliver that next week with my full financial plan.
Brandon, you've looked at all of these plans. You know the peril that we are in. Are these plans ambitious enough?
So I didn't hear the first.
No, I said that all the climate scientists are saying that we are in peril right now, right? And I'm asking Brandon Bay if the plans that you've assessed, your opponent's plans, are they ambitious enough?
All of them certainly are in their own ways. There are good things in everyone's plans. Investing in alternative transportation infrastructure, which is core to McKenney's plan, is absolutely important. It gives people alternative options to get around the city, and it removes vehicles from the road, both helping the people that continue to drive by reducing congestion on the streets and lowering emissions in the process. You know, Bob has a great view towards the cost of this all, and that is something to be concerned about. But as I've mentioned, there's an incredible amount of money on the table, not to mention that the federal government this week, it was announced they have $20 billion that they're not sure what to do with. So, you know, having their ear in the capital city, maybe we can talk them into committing some more funds towards these important initiatives in this time of crisis as well. Mr. Sutcliffe's plan to plant 1 million trees is good, and I mean, I'd love to hear more about where exactly they're going to go, but we do need to improve the tree canopy in the city, and these are important things that we should be looking at. And I think Mr. Kadri in particular is really focused on the crisis of the moment and understands well how urgently we need to take action here.
Nour Kadri, final word to you in this section.
Well, thank you, Brandon, for saying that about my plan. My plan, especially my environmental plan, is being endorsed by a lot of economists and environmentalists. Today, we've got an endorsement and a thumbs up from the deputy leader of the NDP and deputy environmental critic Alexander Boris for our plan. And this is a testament. And I'm proud to say that a lot of economists, that are leading economists in the country, are supporting our plan, especially when it comes to the environment. There are a lot of candidates that are saying things that are not achievable or not attainable, and I agree, but Mr. Sutcliffe is not...
Who's not? Well, whose plan is not achievable?
Well, Mr. Chiarelli is saying he's going to freeze taxes, and that's not doable. You freeze taxes and then you cut services. That's the way that it happens, because the city is under a lot of pressures. I mean, there are collective agreements for salaries, and people have to pay those salaries and the additions that they have negotiated. 13 unions exist at the city. The city has a fleet of buses and ambulances, and the gas prices are going up. So the city is under the same inflationary pressures. But what we need to do is to make sure that we get into best practices of city finances, tap into that market of the green energy and the hundreds of billions of dollars that we can bring into the city, and that's how we are able to do it. I want to be an inflation buster. I don't want to give you a 7% tax increase. We're putting our numbers at 2%. Our plans are costed, and I'm yet to hear from Mr. Sutcliffe what is his number. He is dancing around the issue, and he's not given a number on taxes.
Okay,
and this is dangerous.
Your number. Okay, we're gonna have to end it there. Thank you. That's the end of that first section. We're gonna move on to our second section, and I'm gonna begin with Bob Chiarelli. And the question is this: name 3 things you would do differently from Mayor Jim Watson in terms of leadership and pulling council together to address the climate and housing homelessness crises. Bob Chiarelli.
On the issue of leadership, I always endeavor to pull council together for all important decisions, including climate, housing, homelessness, the budget, and all areas. There's serious issues in terms of communication and cooperation at City Hall that needs to be rectified in a major way. I have an open door policy. I've had an open door policy as regional chair and mayor, that any councillor at any time can come into my office and raise any issue and try to have those issues resolved. I discuss with the councillors what are their priorities in their ward, and I try to help them in every way possible to help them in their ward. There's been a lot of vitriol and problems with this particular council that everybody knows about. I've always been open and transparent with the public, council, and the media. My track record is well known. I deliver and work collaboratively with council and council groups. I am a reliable facilitator. For example, when amalgamations across the province and country resulted in chaos, I was able to bring together the entire community, rural, suburban, and city councillors, again exercising facilitation. I spend about 45 or 50% of my time as an elected official facilitating.
Okay.
Getting the right people in the same room at the same time to try to make things happen.
All right.
We were able to create
We're gonna have to
a seamless
wrap it up.
and effective transition to the new city out of 12 squabbling political governments. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine McKenney, some would say that you were part of a council that squabbled a fair bit, a rather fractious council. Do you have the ability, like Bob Chiarelli says he has, to bring this council together?
I do. I have worked well with my colleagues. I will say this about Bob. I was there at the city, and he did work very well with all of council, and he did bring council together. And I'm going to answer the question, what the three things I would do different. Every morning as mayor, I will wake up and I will ask, who slept in a shelter last night? That's the first thing I'll think about. And who ended up homeless? Who is about to fall into homelessness? We need to ensure that everyone has a safe and affordable place to live in this city. I will aggressively turn my climate plan into action. I will work with my council colleagues to ensure that we have the city that you deserve every single day. And third, I will be transparent. I'm going to tell you who's funding my campaign before you go to the polls, and I will make sure that we bring you into every decision-making discussion at City Hall in a very meaningful way. Thank you.
Mark Sutcliffe, you have no political experience. You know, Bob Chiarelli has decades of experience. What makes you capable of bringing this council together?
So I have lots of leadership experience in the community. I've worked my whole life in Ottawa and been a leader throughout my career as the chair of the board of organizations like United Way and the Board of Trade, the Great Canadian Theatre Company, Orchestra, many other organizations. I've always worked well and achieved consensus in any leadership role, in any of the many leadership roles that I've held. I want to go back to the original question, though, and by the way, I want to, issue a bit of a mild objection to everybody calling me Mr. Sutcliffe all the time, Brandon and Nour, making me feel old. So please call me Mark. So my goal as mayor is to bring everyone together to solve the problems that we're facing as a community, and I have committed to building 100,000 new homes in Ottawa over the next 10 years, including 10,000 affordable and supportive homes. And we're going to do that through smart intensification while respecting community design plans and without expanding Ottawa's urban boundary. That's the way we have to do this. And the other thing that I will not do is do a blanket removal of R1 zoning across the city so that people who live in neighborhoods like Old Ottawa South and Alta Vista and others will see their neighbor sell their house and the new owner putting up a 4-story building that has 6 units in it. We're going to achieve intensification, but we're going to do it in a smart way. There are other candidates proposing the complete removal of R1 across the city, and I don't think that's what the people in different neighborhoods in Ottawa want.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Nour Kadri, you've been a professor, as you told us, for a very long time. You're a political neophyte. What makes you capable of bringing this council together to deal with the very real problem of climate change and homelessness?
I have been a coalition builder all my life. And in my political career, I have worked with the National Democratic Institute of Washington, and I went to many emerging democracies around the world. And I have built coalitions between opposing parties. And you know how the world is wrecked within emerging democracies. And that experience, I can bring it in order to bring the council. What I see in the two camps, the one that are led by Mark and the one that is led by Catherine, is that those are the same two camps that are dividing the council now that we have. There are lots of things at City Hall that are not working. And if you look at the co-chairs of Mr. Sutcliffe or Mark, there are a lot of them that are councillors that are supporting him, that are part of the same group of Mr. Watson. And they were always in fights with the same group of Catherine McKenney. This is going to be an extension of what's happening on council. So what I'm going to do differently is that I want to make sure that we bring council together. I've got experience in coalition building, and I am able to speak to Tim Tierney and Laura Dudas on one hand, and other councillors like Catherine McKenney who supported her, whether they are Sean Minar or Ralston King or other councillors in City Hall.
Okay. Brandon Bay, what will you do differently than former mayor, or not former mayor, he's still our mayor, but Mayor Jim Watson?
Much like my fellow candidates here have been speaking about, it's important to address the fact that in this last term of council, Mayor Watson appeared to take a very hard line with those who disagreed with him, and it's essential that we work with all wards and all councillors towards their goals, not just those who often agree with us, to ensure that we're improving the whole city over the next 4 years. I'd also draw on my background in software and see the city leverage technology to improve both service delivery, but also data-based decision-making and government transparency, and really just communicate better with the city. I'd also like to talk about the importance of holding developers accountable, which we saw less of than we should have in the last few years. In particular, ensuring that project plans are well consulted with the community and that they're not changed during construction in ways that eliminate mixed-use spaces, affordable housing, parks, or other important community features. We have to build faster, but we have to do it in a way that builds incredible communities for everyone. I'd also just like to briefly clarify what Mark was speaking to R1 zoning removal. Going from R1 to R2 just means you can build duplexes now. That's it. The buildings don't get any taller. It just means 2 families can live on 1 lot. And it is essential that we remove that restrictive, exclusionary zoning to build the important intensification we need in the city. It won't disrupt our communities at all.
Catherine McKenney, you were nodding throughout the time that Brandon Bay was speaking, which suggests that you're in violent agreement with everything he said. Is that the
Sure, I
case?
use violent, but yes, let me tell you this. So Brendan's right. You know, removing R1 mostly means moving to R2. The province is going to do it. We need to get ahead of it. We need a Made in Ottawa solution so that we are making decisions for our neighborhoods. And I'll tell you this, if we accept that we are going to build a new subdivision, Taywin/Taggart subdivision, here's what we know. $465 per person per year forever. That's what it's going to cost. It's not a cost that we can pass along to our future generations. We have got to limit sprawl. We've got to not develop beyond our existing urban boundary, and we can do intensification in gentle ways, and it can lead to better, more walkable, more compact neighborhoods. We don't have to fearmonger. We don't have to tell you that you're going to have 6-story buildings or high-rises in your neighborhood. As Brendan said, it will often mean a duplex, 2 families living where 1 does now.
Bob Chiarelli, do you have a response to that?
I support intensification. We have a debate that's been going on in our community for some time. My position is that further expanding the urban boundary is a decision to be avoided, with any approval of expansion made only under exceptional circumstances. Mr. Willis, who is the outgoing planning director at the City of Ottawa, was of the opinion, and he stated it publicly, that we have 10 to 15 years of property available for housing at the present time. So there's no need to expand the urban boundary to any significant extent. The question of intensification, I think there's a very, very strong consensus amongst the public to have intensification, and we're talking about the details about how we're going to do it. We're going to work through those details over the course of the next couple of years.
Okay.
But there are tremendous opportunities for intensification. We have developers who are interested in intensification. You can see them building high-rise buildings. Some of them sometimes are opposed, but intensification is the way to go. I think there's a very, very strong consensus. In terms of the single...
Okay. Finish very quickly.
It's not working.
It's not working. Yeah.
Oh.
Just finish up.
He's telling me to be quiet.
Just finish.
Okay.
Let him finish.
I don't mind.
I've given everyone a bit of padding. Finish up. Finish up, Bob Chiarelli, please. Finish what you were going to say.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
I'll give up my time.
All right.
Thank you.
Nour Kadri? It's working now.
Okay. So I'm against removing the R1 zoning because we need to preserve the identities of communities. I don't want anybody in Orleans or in Barhaven or in Ottawa South or Kanata having high-rises in their backyards. We need to preserve the identities of communities. On the other hand, the solution is with intensification, but we can have intensification close to transit. We can have intensifications in urban places. We can have intensification, and I've seen very good ideas as I go on the campaign trail, on shopping malls in general, where that's going to be good for both for business and for the people that are going to look at this. But one important thing that we have to do in all these types of projects, and this is how I'm going to differ from the previous administration, is we need to be transparent and we need to be accountable. And transparency and accountability are going to be guiding principles at City Hall when Nour Kadri is the mayor.
Mark Sutcliffe, final word to you in this section.
Sure, thank you. So, there we go. So first of all, I want to use an example of the kind of intensification we can achieve. And I talked about this when I announced my plan to build 100,000 homes over the next 10 years in Ottawa. Look at Bayview Station. It's the intersection of the two main transit lines in Ottawa, Line 1 and Line 2. There's 21 acres of land there that the city owns. If you stand at Bayview Station and you do a 360-degree turn, you don't see very much housing. There's a huge opportunity there to have smart intensification very close to public transit and to include a lot of affordable housing in a development there if we partner with Ottawa Community Housing, with other social organizations, and with the development industry. So there's a huge opportunity there to build lots of affordable homes close to public transit. That's one example. I just want to come back to something that Nour said. I'm very proud of the coalition of people who form the honorary co-chairs of my campaign. I encourage you to look at their names on my website at marksutcliffe.ca. They're a cross-section of people from throughout the community and from across the political spectrum. That demonstrates the kind of leadership that I can bring to City Hall, because I can work with anyone. I can work with anyone on the current City Council, anyone who's running for City Council right now. I'm prepared to work with everyone to build more homes and build a better future for our children and grandchildren.
Everyone got a chance to speak twice in this section, except you, Brandon. So, Brandon, you have the final word. My apologies. Speak twice.
I guess I'll just follow up on what Mark was speaking to then. 100,000 homes in 10 years just maintains the current pace. It's status quo. We've been building 10,000 homes a year for the last 2 years now. It's projected to continue on at this pace, and it just meets the minimum we need to meet growth, to eliminate the current deficit in affordable housing, and does absolutely nothing to solve the affordable housing crisis and the housing affordability crisis for those who live here today. And we need to set more ambitious targets, and we need to elect people who understand the zoning bylaw and are willing to eliminate things like R1 that are overly restrictive.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
move towards.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next section. You did speak twice. You spoke twice in this section. To build more deeply affordable housing, to invest in public transportation to enable the shift away from cars, and to address climate risks for critical infrastructure from extreme weather could require well over $500 million per year of new municipal capital and programming capital expenditures, assuming matched funding from the province and the feds. Where would you increase spending, and where would you cut? Where would new immediate sources of municipal funding come from? And this time we're going to start with you, Catherine McKenney.
Well, thank you. Thank you. As you know, I have a plan to address housing affordability, to invest in public transportation, and in bold climate action. And my plan has been costed, and I am excited to release my full financial plan next week before anyone heads to the polls. And I will clearly show how we can pay for a bold vision for a healthier, greener, and better connected city. And my platform can be fully funded within the 3%, the current 3% property tax approach. Now, from my experience working at City Hall on the budget, as staff and as councillor, I know that the city budget is intentionally kept opaque and difficult so that we all have a hard time understanding it. Let me ask, anybody here understand the city budget? One person. Oh yeah, I believe you. But guess what? Who wins when the budget isn't transparent? We don't. Our communities don't. When budgets are made impossible to navigate, it is easier to give money to corporate partners like Porsche dealerships, while families and people like you pay your full property tax bill. Budgets are about choices and about priorities. And my priorities are to end chronic homelessness, make transit reliable and affordable so you can get where you need to go on time, and making Ottawa a world leader on climate. Thank you.
Mark Sutcliffe. Mark Sutcliffe.
So there's obviously a lot we need to do here, and you know, there are big investments we need to make in order to save money on energy in the long run, and retrofit city buildings, and also build charging stations and do other things to make it easier for people to consume less energy. But I want to come back to this issue of taxes, because I think it's a really important one, and I know Catherine will release their plan next week. But Catherine is talking about keeping taxes to 3% or lower for the next 4 years. And for the last 4 years, part of the budget process has been for the City Council to vote on a direction to city staff on what the tax increase should be for that year. And every year for the last 4 years, Catherine has voted against increasing taxes by 3% or less. So that's Catherine's record on taxes. So I'm looking forward to seeing Catherine's plan next week, because I think people have a right to know how it's going to be achievable with all the spending that Catherine is talking about to achieve a 3% tax increase going forward. I think it's going to, you know, I think it's going to be very difficult for that to happen with all the spending on OC Transpo and on bike lanes and other initiatives that Catherine has already committed to. So there are lots of things we need to do as a city, and we need to invest in affordable housing. Coming back to, okay, I'm out of time. I'll
finish
address that in my next.
Finish the thought.
I just want to say the number that I talked about of 100,000 homes over the next 10 years was received with great enthusiasm by a lot of experts in the industry. It is the number we need to build over the next 10 years, 10,000 houses a year, including 1,000 affordable units and supportive units. That's what we need to do to meet our goals.
Nour, are you enthusiastic about Mark Sutcliffe's plan?
Not really. Because we've released our housing plan, and we're going to build 160,000 units, of which 40% of those are going to be built in the first term, so 160,000 units over the next 10 years, of which 25% of those are going to be affordable housing. Because I agree with what Brendan said. Over the last 2 years, if you look at the data from CMHC, we have 11,400 units that have been built over the last year. So this is the current situation. If we leave things as they are, we are going to build more than 100,000 homes, and we don't need any plan from Mark. Any good vision or leadership, they require to stretch their targets. There is a need. The 100,000 houses is very short. It is below the current expectations and goals. And what we need to look at is to stretch those targets to deal with the crisis that exists. If Mark is saying that some people are enthusiastic, these are the wrong experts that he is talking to, whoever they are. Because the basic numbers say if we leave the status quo, it's going to be more than 100,000 houses, and the problem is going to be still the same. And Ottawa is growing. 500,000 people are going to be coming to Ottawa over the next 2 decades.
Brandon Bay?
I actually think Nour is on to the exact number. 160,000 units is my target as well. I think his plan is a little ambitious in the rate we can get there, though. It takes time for city policies to make an impact on the way things are moving in the city, and I think to get there, we should look to double the rate of housing built by about 2029, which means it's more like 45,000 in the next 4 years. We're not going to be able to jump that far ahead that quickly. But 100,000 is not at all enough to do anything more than meet the immediate need of the city's growth over the next decade. But I'd also like to go back to the original question a little and say that Catherine McKenney is right. The budget is way too vague and difficult to parse. And so, someone on the outside of council today looking in, trying to identify places to make cuts, it's very difficult. And I'd like to see more technology leveraged in collection of data on the way various services are performing, on where their money is spent, and expose that both to the public and to the council to make more informed decisions on our budgeting going forward. But my main budget priority is to grow programs that contribute to the city's quality of life, enhance community completeness, and advance multiple goals concurrently, all while generating more revenue to cover their costs. Some of the examples of that are an expansion of Invest Ottawa's startup programs into non-tech industries, increasing parking fees to pay for better road maintenance and public transit, retail spaces in transit stations and possibly libraries to pay rent to the city and grow some more money that way, a landlord licensing system. It's time to get creative at City Hall and dare to dream bigger.
Bob Chiarelli, to build more deeply affordable housing, to invest in public transportation, where would you increase spending and where would you cut?
I was regional chair for 3 years. Following that, I was mayor of the amalgamated city for 3 years. We froze taxes for 6 years consecutively. We did it with hard work. We did it with spending on what we needed to spend on, not what it was nice to spend on. My position is that if I do become mayor again, the first 100 days, we'll have the best experts we can find to come in and do complete analysis of the financial situation in the city. That is not known at the present time. So it's very, very important. There are court cases ongoing now in excess of $300 million that the city might have to make good on. So that's hanging over everybody's head. So it's my position, first of all, when you look at what people are going through now in this economy, some of them having trouble making ends meet on mortgage payments, on buying food, and so forth, there's no damn way that I want to give an increase in taxes, and that's why we're on line to freeze taxes and to do that analysis for the first 100 days and what we can spend, where we can spend it. But we have the record, 6 consecutive years of freezing taxes. We're also freezing budgets for the first year. So then when we take office, if I'm fortunate enough to take office, then we are freezing the 2003 budgets, 2023 budget at the 2022 level. However, for healthcare and social services and some other items of that type, if they need an increase in funds, we would consider that. But the situation is very, very desperate financially.
Okay, Mark Sutcliffe, you wanted to intervene.
If I could just speak to that for a moment. So Bob is right. He was the regional chair for Ottawa Carleton from 1997 to 2000 and froze taxes. And he was the mayor of Ottawa from 2000 to 2003 and froze taxes. And then the next mayor from 2003 to 2006 increased taxes by 11%. Do you know who that was? Bob Chiarelli. So he's mentioning the first 6 years of his term as regional chair and mayor, but not the last 3 years when he rose taxes significantly. And then in 2006, Bob ran against Larry O'Brien, who said, 0 means 0. Does everyone remember that? 0 means 0. How did that work out in 2006? Bob ran against Larry O'Brien and lost to Larry O'Brien on 0 means 0, and now Bob's the 0 means 0 guy. That's not realistic. It's not. Does anybody think it's realistic to freeze taxes with inflation rising as rapidly as it is? Does anyone think it's realistic to freeze taxes with the priorities that we have right now as a city, including addressing housing and homelessness? It's not realistic, it's a political gimmick, and it's not going to work.
Catherine McKenney.
Thanks. I just want to respond to the fact that I voted against successive budgets, and I'm going to tell you why. Because they did not meet the priorities of people. Every one of those budgets increased transit fares, decreased service, no money for climate action, cuts in recreation services, and not enough money to move families out of motels. We have got in the city 320 families with 742 children living in motels tonight. They've been there for years. They use a bathtub to wash their dishes, and they have a microwave to cook their meals. That is why I voted against those budgets. Those budgets did not do anything to help those families, and it could have.
Okay.
So I will continue to vote against budgets if, in fact, they don't meet your needs. Thank you.
Brandon Bay and then Nour Kadri. Brandon?
I agree with the idea that freezing taxes right now is irresponsible, both in this time of inflation, while the city's expenses are going up. Freezing taxes means significant cuts, but it also means we are taking no action in this time of crisis, of housing affordability, of a transit system that often doesn't work at all, and of the climate crisis that we're here to talk about tonight. Yeah, I think,
Okay.
I think we need to behave responsively with tax increases, but there will be increases.
Nour Kadri, does Brandon Bay have a point?
Well, he's got a point, but in the present tight fiscal environment, I would hesitate to spend more. We need to review the current expenditures with an eye to eliminate waste and any inappropriate expenditures. And this could be done if we are transparent and accountable. There are lots of waste that is happening at City Hall. And when we have a clear budget and we have proper consultations and everything is transparent, then we can be accountable and we can prioritize things and move forward. So eliminating waste will free resources to be used where they are needed the most and where they can create the biggest bang, realizing our priorities for the monies of the taxpayers of the City of Ottawa.
Okay. Bob Chiarelli, final word to you in this section. Bob?
A lot of you have heard Professor Ian Lee, who's very, very well recognized worldwide. You often hear him on the Rob Snow Show, but he's very, very credible in terms of his analysis. And I have a quote from him. Bob Chiarelli is a fiscal realist. He's the only person thus far who is speaking the truth to those who are eligible to vote in this next election. We are in a crisis, and you don't hear that from anyone else but Bob Chiarelli. Give him the credit to have the courage, the guts, the backbone to speak the truth to all of us and tell everybody, no, it's not the best of all worlds. We're facing a very real crisis. And I stand by his words.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next section. Mark Sutcliffe, as mayor, what would you do to protect and improve access to green corridors, tree canopy, local wetlands, and shorelines? How would you advance equal access to local healthy food and protection of existing agricultural lands?
Thanks, Adrian. So there's a lot in that question. As I mentioned earlier, we need to plant more trees. Alors mon objectif est de planter 1 million d'arbres au cours des 4 prochaines années. I think green space is a critical component of having a greener and cleaner city in Ottawa. We have to protect the environment. I will also work with the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority and the NCC to protect the riverfront and the land that they control in that area. I'll continue with the investments that have been made into the Ottawa Sewage Overflow Control Program and have real-time reporting on any of the overflows. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll have a roundtable that will include the Ottawa Riverkeeper, cafes, Ecology Ottawa, and others. And I know Catherine McKenney is promising to work with the federal government to make the Greenbelt a national urban park, which is not a bad idea. I'm not opposed to that idea, but that's protecting space that's already protected. I think we need to make sure that the Greenbelt continues to be protected by the National Capital Commission and recognize that 25% of it right now, roughly, is farmland, and we need to continue to have that farmland as part of the Greenbelt going forward.
I just want to pose the question in French as well. En tant que maire, que ferez-vous pour protéger et améliorer l'accès aux couloirs verts, aux couverts forestiers, aux zones humides locales et aux rives. Comment feriez-vous progresser l'égalité d'accès à des aliments sains locaux et la protection des terres agricoles existantes? Nour Kadri.
Well, accessibility follows availability. We need to ensure that we have first the green spaces, the green ravines, the green corridors, the public and communal gardens, and of course, sufficient tree canopies. Once we have the appropriate space devoted to these green spaces, we need to protect them and safeguard the accessibility of the residents and the communities to them. We should avoid concentrating these areas in few favored communities, because balance and equitable distribution is key here to the access to that program. Many cities and communities, they have recognized that you cannot and should not source food from distant places. There are now available and economic technologies such as vertical farming that transform agriculture and food production into urban areas. And what is even more important is that these vertical farms produce healthy and clean food with the least amount of hands to handle the produce. So we need to balance these things out. The other important things that we need to be careful about is 82% of Ottawa is rural space, and that's got about 1,100 farms. And as part of our plan, we want to make sure that those farms are well equipped and repurposed and supported. For instance, we've got an initiative for smart farms, and these farms can have double the produce. They can have big support in terms of the cattle and the productions in there. And the trend that is going now is to have regional supply chains. We have experienced this through COVID, and we have seen the shelves going empty, and in some other situations, things have become expensive. We need to change that as we go by supporting our farmers in the rural space.
Thanks, Nour. Brandon Bay.
Nour's right. We have an incredible knowledge base here with all of the 11,000 farms he mentioned, and as one of Canada's strongest tech hubs. If we bring those experts together, we can easily be a world leader in ag tech. The Greenbelt has, among other things, given us a ton of south-facing, unobstructed horizon, which is ideal for greenhouses and vertical farming. Ottawa should expand its urban farming while we still have so much agricultural land and so many working farmers. That industry is seeing a decline in people going into it, and city growth is always going to be a mess of competing interests. I believe we should limit how much we expand the urban boundary, but this will surely not be the last time in Ottawa's history that we lose rural lands development. Local growing is good for the economy, for the environment, and for our health, and we need to figure out ways to keep doing it well into the future. Tech is a great option, but we've got others as well. The Kilbourne allotment garden that's in danger of being paved over is an incredible example of good community gardening that we should be replicating across the city. Shepherds of Good Hope, a shelter in the market, already receives a significant share of its summer produce from Kilbourne gardeners, and we can be doing that across the city with more fruit and nut trees, with more community gardening, with all of these crops benefiting shelters and food banks and other community groups. And as the city's density grows, we've got options to build green roofs and green balconies on new multi-unit housing that could help take backyard gardens into the sky. We've got tons of opportunity to expand our urban agriculture, and we should be taking advantage of that.
Bob Chiarelli.
A lot of things require money that need to be done. I have a comment or two about that. We have all seen the financial burden of homeowners, renters, and small business owners. So the city's budget in year number one with the newly elected council needs to be stabilized and assessed. We know the important numbers. Budget $6.2 billion a year. City debt tripled to $3.5 billion. Annual interest payments of $240 million. And hundreds of millions of dollars in court cases hanging in the balance. There's a lot of uncertain things about the financial situation in the city of Ottawa. So I'm going to tell you some things I'm not going to do in budget year one. No new roads, but more fixed roads. No Alta Vista Parkway, no twinning the Airport Parkway, no Brian Coburn Boulevard extension that impacts Mare Bleu, no T-Win project. That's something that Mark supports. No expansion to the urban boundary except projects that are already surrounded by existing infrastructure, such as Canada North and West Carleton. Sometimes, on some things, it's just the time to say no, or it's just the time to say not now. That's how I managed 6 years of budget without a tax increase.
But Bob Chiarelli, I don't think you answered the question, really. Like, the question was, as mayor, what would you do to protect and improve access to green corridors, tree canopy, local wetlands, and shorelines? I don't think you addressed that in your answer.
It's the funding that's required to do a lot of that type of work.
So you're saying you
that I'm
wouldn't do it?
referring to.
You're saying the city can't afford
I'm saying
to do that?
that's a question that's a thing that we have to decide. That's why I'm saying that if I become mayor of the city, we have to do an analysis of the city for the first 100 days and find out how serious the situation is and what can we do and what can we not do. When I'm saying we're not going to spend on these things, it's because we don't have the money.
Okay.
They're not absolutely necessary at the time, and we need to put the money where the money needs to go. That money might go to those things,
Right.
okay? But we can't say for sure at this particular time.
Catherine McKenney, do you agree that these things are not absolutely necessary?
No, I don't. They are absolutely necessary. I certainly support Mark's plan to plant 1 million trees, and if I'm not successful, I may likely apply for a job as a tree planter at the City of Ottawa. Thank you. And you know, if you know my record as councillor, I've always fought also to protect our trees. We have to protect our existing trees and prevent future, further nature loss. And that is why I will work to turn the Greenbelt into a national urban park and protect that green space from further development forever. It has been chipped away at, and we need to stop that. I'll remind you also that I fought to protect the Jock River floodplain from development. That will likely result in flooding in people's homes in the future. And as your mayor, I can assure you that that would not happen again. And I am committed to maintaining our current urban boundary, pre-official plan, and ensuring that no more agricultural land around Ottawa is slated for urban development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna have to end this section there. We're a little bit over time, and we do want to get to the questions from the host organizations as well. So I'd like to ask Angela Keller-Herzog to come forward and say a few words. We're taking a short break right now. And then we'll return to the questions in a couple minutes. So Angela Keller-Herzog has a couple words to say.
Okay, that mic or over here?
Right here.
All right.
Yeah.
Whew, okay, hi everybody. So I want to welcome all of you, both our virtual viewers and those of you who've decided to join us here live. It is an immense pleasure to be spending 2 hours of time with our candidates here talking about environment and climate justice. These are two extremely important issues, and I'm here to welcome you on behalf of the People's Official Plan Coalition. Yes, we are better when we work together. So the POP Coalition, I'm here to tell you, is on our working group to organize this event for you tonight, has been cafes, CAWI, the City for All Women Initiative, the Council of Canadians Ottawa chapter, Ecology Ottawa, FCA, the Federation of Citizens Associations, and lastly, For Our Kids, a group of parents that are deeply, deeply concerned about the future of our kids and grandkids in view of the impending or already going on climate emergency. So thank you to all of you, and I think that many of us have been asked to hold our applause, so maybe we can let loose for a moment and give our applause to these 5 great candidates. And again, I also want to give a round of applause for all of you folks, because as far as I'm concerned, you're the leading citizens, and I know that every single person in this auditorium here today is going to vote. So thank you. So I have 2 more short jobs. First of all, where can you find information? So this is the fourth and final of the eco debates that we've been organizing. They're all on a website, and the slowly circulating slideshow has been also telling you that. And the site is at cafesottawa.ca. There's a button, and the tab is Mayoral Debates on the Environment. And on that same page where you can find the recordings of the past debates, you'll be able to find this one when it's recorded. You can also find the videos of the other candidates that are not here tonight who have sent us their videos. So you can also find out about the other candidates, and there's some interesting characters there as well, I assure you. The last job that I have is to tell you about the major sponsors for this event. These are organizations that have been generous enough to give us a little boost to help us with our expenses. There's the Enviro Center, there is James McNeil Commercial Real Estate, and a strong private sector corporation linchpin in Ottawa, the Mary Dairy. We are proud to be sponsored by them, and I urge you to try their vegan ice cream. There is OCAF, the Ottawa Climate Action Fund, the Public Service Alliance of Canada for the National Capital Region, and last of the major sponsors is Synapsity, who are community builders par excellence. So with that, my job here is done. Thank you, and back to you, Adrian.
Okay, I think we now want testing. First of all, how are you doing? You're okay? It's a beautiful audience. I just wish people who are watching could see that this sanctuary is packed, and it's really wonderful to see folks out. So thank you so much again for joining us this evening. I think we are ready now with questions from our host organizations, and I'm just kind of looking for a little bit of direction. Are they here? You're here, okay. All right, please go ahead. You can pose the first question. And please introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, bonsoir. Moi, c'est Maurissa Dalia-Ellis. J'ai le plaisir de vous poser une question. Je travaille du Kawi. Aujourd'hui, la question que je vous pose, c'est posée par Temper P. And once again, I'll be posing the question in French. Alors, dans quelle mesure est-il important pour vous d'amener la politique municipale et la prise de décision dans un État plus collaboratif et compromettant? Et aussi, quel avantage cela présenterait-il pour une ville de travailler ou bien de ne pas travailler dans ce sens? Alors, dans le sens collaboratif et compromettant, par exemple, sur quelles priorités personnelles feriez-vous des compromis pour y parvenir? Merci. I can ask it in English, mais merci.
On commence avec Nour Kadri.
So we'd like always to work on collaborative approaches at City Hall. And collaboration is key. And what we have seen in the previous council is that we have seen a lot of divisions. And as such, it is absolutely very important to have somebody who can bring everyone together so that we can bring about the change that we need. The City of Ottawa is a $6.2 billion corporation, $3.5 billion in debt, $250 million to service that debt. And with these challenges, it is absolutely very important to collaborate together to bring about the change. And this could happen. The City of Ottawa has collaborated together during the pandemic, and we had some of the most efficient plans. We can do it on other files.
Brandon Bay.
Could you just repeat the question, please? I couldn't hear it very well with all the echo.
In French again? In French? OK. Dans quelle mesure est-il important pour vous d'amener la politique municipale et la prise de décision dans un État collaboratif et compromettant? Et quels avantages cela présenterait-il pour la ville de travailler ou de ne pas travailler dans ce sens? Par exemple, sur quelles priorités personnelles feriez-vous des compromis pour y parvenir?
I think I agree heavily with what Nour was saying, that collaboration among the city is important to foster. And I mean, even with the other candidates here, all of the great ideas we're hearing and having this exchange, it's important to work together and to take the good and prioritize the things that the city needs. And I mean, all of you here have spoken to many of us about your priorities for the city, and we've been hearing on the campaign trail what everyone wants for the city, and those are the things we want to move forward. And for me personally, that's to make Ottawa an affordable home with complete communities, to see it become the greatest place in the country to start and run a business, and to be a world-renowned, world-class capital city.
Bob Chiarelli?
So could you repeat the question again? I wasn't exactly sure what the question was.
Dans quelle mesure est-il important pour vous d'amener la politique municipale et la prise de décision dans un État plus collaboratif et compromettant? Et quels avantages présenterait-il pour la ville de travailler ou de ne pas travailler dans ce sens? Par exemple, sur quelles priorités personnelles feriez-vous des compromis pour y parvenir? Merci.
Thank you. Collaboration is very, very important. We've seen over the last number of years the lack of collaboration which existed at Ottawa City Hall. I believe it was precipitated by lack of proper leadership, and that has to be rectified in a new council. I had a policy when I was regional chair and mayor, and I had an open door policy that any councillor, is my time up?
No.
I see that.
Not yet. You have 30 more seconds.
All right. So, yes, I collaborated with council very, very significantly. I spent 45 or 50% of my time both as a minister at Queen's Park and as mayor doing facilitation so that councillors had access, they were given responsibility, committees were balanced, and things worked out on that basis. So if you don't have it at the leadership level, it's not going to happen.
Okay.
You have to have that leadership where you're totally transparent to the public, you're totally transparent to your council colleagues. Mm-hmm. Often we saw things coming forward to committee and council that had not been properly noticed to members of those committees.
We're going to have to wrap it up there, Bob Chiarelli.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Catherine McKenney.
Thank you. Well, of course, I believe that it is essential that we are collaborative. I believe that we can have honest discussion, debate, and dissension. And you should be allowed to have dissension around the council table. It is healthy. No one person knows what's best for the entire city. We saw that through the convoy. What happens when we don't collaborate, when we don't work together? So we need to, each councillor does, they stand up for their community, but we have to work together. And I have a record, I work well with Councillor Moffat, we don't always agree. Councillor Hubley, we don't always agree. And other councillors, I have worked well with them, and I will continue to. Thank you.
Mark Sutcliffe.
Alors, merci pour la question. C'est une très bonne question. Et je pense que les résidents d'Ottawa sont très inquiétés par la politique toxique de maintenant et à l'hôtel de ville pendant les 4 années passées. Alors, je vais répondre aux questions en français parce que la question était demandée en français. Je pense que c'est essentiel que le prochain maire d'Ottawa peut travailler avec l'ensemble d'Ottawa, avec les résidents ruraux, les résidents suburbains, les résidents urbains et les résidents francophones. Alors ça, ce que je vais faire, c'est ce que j'ai fait pendant toute ma carrière.
Okay. We're going to go to the next question, and I should say these questions are from viewers. So these are questions that have been sent in from viewers. Go ahead, please.
I'd like to talk about
Excuse me. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second. 1 second. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. You're interrupting. Excuse me. Yo. Excuse me. Yo. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. You're interrupting, and we're going to go ahead. All right, sir. You are interrupting the debate, and we need to go forward. Thank you very much. Can someone, sir, you are interrupting. You are interrupting a debate. It's very, very rude. It's time for you to stop. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Can you please stop? Thank you very much. Please, sir. Can you please stop? Thank you very much. Please go ahead. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, should I wait till he stops?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You'll see how much censorship there is. Ask yourself why obviously we have censorship.
Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, just go ahead.
My name's Dave McNichol. Thanks for the welcome over there, sir. I'm happy to ask a question from the Council of Canadians, the Ottawa chapter. The question is from Jessica McRandall, and the question is about extreme weather. Given the increasing number of extreme weather events in Ottawa, from tornadoes to floods to derechos, putting lives and homes at risk, what actions do you believe can be taken at the municipal level to protect our community going forward?
Brandon Bay. Thank you.
One of the biggest and most immediate actions we can take is preserving and even expanding on the natural spaces we have that act as important stormwater drainage systems. That includes the Club Link golf course that's being proposed to be paved over. That includes other developments. Mark earlier mentioned Let's Intensify Bayview Station, which right now is all grass and green space, but there are places like train yards that are paved over monstrosities that we could build communities in instead. And I think it's important to protect the natural systems that we have to really let the environment do a lot of this work for us, because it's the fact that we've been destroying it all that we're suffering so much today.
Bob Chiarelli?
Yes, we will be issuing a full environmental policy in the next 24, 48 hours. But part of it is as follows. The city's Energy Evolution Strategy 2020 identified the 5 actions which will have the most significant impact on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Electrify personal vehicles, 22.7%. Retrofit existing residential buildings, 17.9%. Divert organic waste from landfill and create renewable natural gas, 17.2%. Retrofit existing commercial buildings, 15.1%. And transition to zero-emission commercial fleets, 8.3%. Collectively, these 5 actions account for roughly 80% of the greenhouse gas emission reductions required. They identified the cost of implementing the full strategy at $32 billion over the next 28 years, or $1.2 billion per year. This level of spending is outside the fiscal capacity of the City of Ottawa. Even the 20 priority projects identified were estimated to cost $7.5 billion over the next 5 years. Again, despite the wish fulfillment dreams of some, that is outside the range of our capability. We cannot afford the property tax increases or substantial and unsustainable increase in the city debt load for that.
Okay, we're going to have to end it there, Bob Chiarelli. You're way over right now. So really, I'll give you 5 more seconds, and we're going to have to wrap it up.
Okay, we need to work with the federal and provincial governments, nonprofit organizations, as well as industry in order to solve this problem.
Thank you. Catherine McKenney.
Thank you. We need to give people a choice in how they move around their city. Sometimes people will need to drive. Sometimes they will choose to cycle. Sometimes they will walk, and sometimes they'll take transit. And often they'll do 1, 2, or 3 of those things all in the same day. It is essential that we provide that choice to people so that we can get them out of their cars and onto more sustainable ways of moving about. We also have to remove emissions from our buildings, and we can do this, and we can do it affordably. Ottawa Community Housing just retrofitted an entire community, net zero, passive, and and it costs a little bit more upfront, but every single unit every year to heat and cool per unit per year is $15, 1-5. We have got to make the action to get there. Thank you.
Mark Sutcliffe, please go ahead.
So I respectfully, Catherine, I thought your answer was interesting because you said we need to respect, as I've said many times during the course of this campaign, we need to respect people's choice to move around the city the way they want to. But your choice is to invest $250 million in borrowed money in one form of transportation, prioritizing bikes over cars. And you just said it's okay for people to drive, but we have to get them out of their cars. So I'm not sure how those two things line up with each other. Going back to the original question, though, which
How
was about...
how is that a contradiction?
Because I think, well, I want to answer the original question if I can, but,
Okay.
you know, I think that there are many people in our community, just to answer that, I think there are many people in our community who will not be able to use bike lanes, no matter how many bike lanes we have, will not be able to use bike lanes in February to take their kids to hockey practice or take their parents to a medical appointment. So I think we need a balanced approach to transportation, not to prioritize bikes over cars. That balanced approach should include cycling lanes, but we shouldn't put all our money into cycling lanes. So anyway, to answer the original question, if I may very quickly, as I've talked about, in terms of disaster relief, you know, in terms of disaster planning, I think the City of Ottawa needs a much more robust emergency and disaster plan in order to be prepared for the climate challenges and the weather events that we're going to face in the next few years.
Okay. Nour Kadri?
In the last debate in Canada, I pay tribute to the many people in Pakistan who lost their lives to the floods. And back then we spoke about 5 million people affected. Now there are more than 33 million people who have been affected by those floods. And I said Ottawa is not immune. And now we're going to think of what's happening with our fellow Canadian citizens in the East Coast and what Fiona has done, and it inflicted lots of damages, and there are lots of people who have been affected also by that. So the answer is sustainability, and that has become synonymous with using renewable resources, particularly energy. And a community is not environmentally viable if fossil fuels continue to be the dominant source of energy, whether in transportation, in home and office heating and cooling and manufacturing. And the answer to this is solar energy, wind energy, thermal energy alternatives, and we need to also transform from ICE or internal combustion engine cars to electric vehicles. We've got a strong environmental plans. We have 10 recommended priority actions. Check it on our platform at kadri.ca, and it is a very comprehensive plan for the environment, and that's going to be the leadership and the stewardship that we're going to put on the environment.
Okay, thanks, Nour Kadri. We're going to move on to the next question, actually. Please go ahead.
Hi, I have to stand on my tippy toes. Okay, there you go. Hi, my name is Sana and I work at Ecology Ottawa. Je m'appelle Sana et je travaille avec Ecology Ottawa. Alors, cette question a été posée par Brianne Trich. Quel est votre plan pour rendre le transport en commun plus abordable et fiable, afin d'encourager l'utilisation de transports en commun? Êtes-vous également d'accord qu'Ottawa devrait imposer une taxe sur les véhicules en centre-ville, comme au Londres en Angleterre, pour réduire les émissions et encourager l'utilisation de transports en commun?
Merci, Sana. Bob Chiarelli? Bob Chiarelli?
I didn't understand the question.
Do you want to see your question again? He said he didn't understand it.
Oh, français, anglais? I can translate it too.
Anglais?
Anglais, great. What is your plan for making public transport more affordable and more reliable, and encouraging more public transit? Are you also in agreement that Ottawa should impose a tax on vehicles coming into Centretown, the way that London has done in England, for reducing emissions and encouraging more public transit?
We have a serious problem in our city with public transit, particularly the LRT and the OC Transpo. Both of those operations are not properly functioning. They're not properly giving service to the public. My position is that a new mayor and a new council needs to do a complete assessment and analysis of OC Transpo. And yes, again, even though there was an inquiry on LRT, they are not functioning in a way that is efficient, that services the public, and we need to give them a real overhaul, a real assessment, and almost start all over again. They don't have enough buses, or they don't have enough operators. They're not functioning. So a new council and a new mayor are going to have to really do an assessment of LRT, public transit, and OC Transpo bus transit. They're not functioning. They're not financially viable. We got to fix them.
Okay. Catherine McKenney.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. First off, I would freeze fares so that we don't continue raising fares on transit. My plan would make transit free for youth 17 and under. It would also increase the resources that we put into transit today. We have to build back our buses, our drivers. 2011, when we optimized transit, that was cut. And then in 2019, when we launched the LRT and another 175 buses were removed from service, that is what we are faced with today. So on congestion charging, I think that you have to have a well-functioning transit system and options. And today, the best way to provide for congestion charging, I believe, is to increase parking fees in your downtown. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mark Sutcliffe.
Hello. All right. Alors, premièrement, il faut qu'on améliore le système de transport en commun à Ottawa. Premièrement, c'est essentiel. Avant de réduire le coût de les systèmes, les tâches, la solution, ce n'est pas de créer un système gratuit, c'est d'améliorer le système de transport en commun. Et il faut qu'on adopte les recommandations de l'enquête et aussi que nous obtenirons les fonds des autres niveaux de gouvernement pour construire phase 3 de le système de train léger.
OK. Nour Kadri.
Merci beaucoup. C'est une très bonne question. Le transport en commun n'est pas fiable ni abordable à Ottawa. And in order to change this, we need to increase ridership by making public transportation more reliable. It's not free. But there are lots of other options that we can look into. For instance, we can run pilot projects to make public transportation free for seniors or free for people below the poverty line. And from there on, we can work on increasing ridership. And you mentioned London. I teach at the Academy of Diplomacy in London at Loughborough University. Just once I have used a car there. Every other time I've used the tube because it's reliable and it is affordable. And when we do it reliable and affordable in Ottawa, everybody will take it and we will be avoiding the congestions that we have in downtown. And I'm against charging taxes on cars that come until we provide people with that affordability and reliability with public transit.
Okay. Brandon?
A blanket tax on vehicles that enter Centertown sounds difficult to enforce and also like it would be disruptive to deliveries and to ride shares and carpools and taxis. But we already have an effective tax on vehicles coming downtown, and that's paid public parking. And that is at the heart of my transit plan, to increase those fees to discourage driving and use that money to help maintain roads better and pay for transit. With the numbers I've worked out, if we increase parking rates from an average of $3.12 an hour to about $9 an hour, and include some in-station retail and vending machines, we can cover about 75% of all transit fares and get rides down to about $1 a piece instead of the current $3.50. And maybe we can work a little further from there to head towards free transit, but that's something I'd have to explore with council.
Okay. That's going to be the end of this section. We're now going to have to move to closing statements because we're rapidly running out of time. And so I'd like to ask we're going to go in reverse order. So we're going to ask if Nour Kadri can deliver his closing statement. Nour.
My friends, fellow Ottawans, throughout my career in public, private, and academia, I've been always a problem solver. And I will marshal the people, their energies, in order to find solutions wherever problems arise. I've got the experience, the knowledge, the diplomatic and economic skills and resources in order to bring the complex thinking that is needed and have a complex, multi-pronged approach to finding solutions. We've got an existential threat that we have to face on head and bring all our collective resources together. And we cannot wait. We have seen Fiona, and we've seen the storm in Ottawa, and we have to start now. As your mayor, I will lead, and I am ready. Nour Kadri is your choice on the ballot. I hope to consider that.
Thank you. Mark Sutcliffe, please go ahead. Please hold your applause. Thank you. Mark Sutcliffe.
Like many of you, I'm very excited about Ottawa's potential and our future, but I'm also concerned about the next year in particular. This election represents a very clear choice. Le choix est clair. I will treat all residents with respect. I'm an experienced bilingual leader who will represent you no matter where you live in Ottawa. I will invest in emergency services, including paramedics. I'll bring a balanced approach to fix public transit and repair roads rather than borrowing hundreds of millions just for bike paths. I'll keep taxes low, cut recreation fees for children, and work to make housing more affordable. Je vais mettre en œuvre un plan environnemental détaillé pour réduire les émissions et la consommation d'énergie. I will not eliminate, on a blanket basis, R1 zoning throughout the city. I will bring positive change that puts people first, change that works for everyone in Ottawa, no matter where you live.
Thank you, Mark Sutcliffe. Catherine McKenney.
So thank you first to everyone who came out this evening and Adrian for moderating. Our city has so much potential, and that's why I'm running for mayor to make Ottawa the healthiest, the greenest, and the best connected city. And I am running to make to build a world-class city for affordable housing, for reliable and affordable transit, for safe cycling, for making Ottawa a world leader in climate action, and to give you a say in how decisions are made. And we will invest in affordable housing and build a healthier, greener, and better connected city. And we will run transit that takes you where you need to go on time, because every modern city needs a robust transit system. And I am committed to transparency, and I will release my full financial plan next week. I was accessible always as a councillor, and I will be transparent as a mayor. Thank you for coming today, and I hope to have your vote on October 24th. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine McKenney. Please hold your applause. Bob Chiarelli, please go ahead.
First of all, thank you all for attending. We need to remind ourselves sometimes of the tremendous grassroots leadership that we have in our community. And certainly as mayor, I want to accommodate that leadership. I want to have a relationship with that leadership, because really the strength of this community comes from the people who live here. As mayor, I'm committing to personally meet monthly with the executive of the Federation of Community Associations, where a lot of leadership resides. You have community associations from Navan to Carp to all over this community, and it's very important that they have access to their mayor. And basically, priority, we've got to fix transit. We've got to fix OC Transpo, LRT. It's a huge job. It's costly. We're going to make it do. We're going to fix it.
Bob Chiarelli, thanks so much. Brandon Bay.
Civic engagement is way down across the province and the country. News broke on Monday that fully a third of mayors or reeves in Ontario were acclaimed because no one registered to run against them. And this is happening more and more frequently with each election. But here in Ottawa, there are an impressive 14 people running for mayor this year. A handful of the candidates are local celebrities, which means they get a little more attention, but many of us are smart, passionate, thoughtful leaders who care very much about this city and want to see it be an incredible place for everyone. This many people with this much love for Ottawa says a whole lot about it. And in this digital age, it's very easy to learn about all the candidates, so please give everyone else a look after this debate. When you cast your ballot next month, I hope you vote for a strong vision for Ottawa. You vote for kind, safe, inclusive communities. You vote for a great remote work experience, and you vote for complete communities. Consider Brandon Bay at the ballot box, but whether you vote for me or not, please just make sure you vote. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you all. And I think all the candidates tonight have acquitted themselves very well. And I think that this slate, it's a testament to the quality that exists in our community. So thank you very much for representing the city so well this evening and comporting yourself with a lot of dignity and civility. And I think the entire audience here appreciated the vigorous discussion they were able to have this evening. So thank you very much for that. And I would be remiss if I did not recognize you, our audience, who were such a receptive group and who, you held your applause for the most part. So thank you for that. And I'd also like to thank the viewers. I know that many viewers are watching our debate this evening on Rogers, so thanks so much. We just want to encourage you to vote and go out vote on election day. And so I think also I should note the organizers of this event and the many volunteers as well who contributed to our being able to engage in this discussion here at Centertown United Church. Thank you for your support and thank you for your leadership as well. And with that, I'd just like to thank all of you for joining us this evening and wish you a very good night.